Hello, my name is Caroline van Bers, and I am from the Integrated Assessment Society and the Institute of Environmental Systems Research at Osnabruck University in Germany. And today I'm presenting the second of our sessions as part of addressing ambiguity in participatory processes. The focus of my presentation today is on experiences from stakeholder processes in the management of the water, energy, food nexus. I will particularly refer to one particular project we're currently wrapping up now, and I'll say more about that in a few minutes. It's carried out in Africa, and here at our institute I teamed up with my colleague Caroline Lumosi from Kenya in order to lead the participatory process of this project. So we are focusing here on river basins where ecological and societal issues are, of course, interconnected, they're dynamic, and they are very complex. They're often transboundary, and they're certainly always transdisciplinary and cross-sectoral in nature when you're trying to deal with managing the nexus. So to address these issues and identify solutions, cooperation with stakeholders is needed, and it is by definition in a cross-boundary situation international, that cooperation and interdisciplinary and intersectoral. It's a process which normally needs to be managed with a great deal of attention if you want to have some effective results. So needless to say, in the process of communicating both between project partners and stakeholders and among the stakeholders themselves, ambiguity and uncertainty are an inherent part of the condition that you will have at the outset of such a participatory process. And they're considered elements to be reduced, overcome as much as possible. But as Marcella pointed out earlier, they can also be a source of creativity. So in the case of river basin management, it's usually these three sectors of water, energy, and food, i.e. agriculture, that are involved. And within the basin, there are normally distinct regions with different functions and interests, and we have to recognize these when we're trying to manage or develop management approaches. For example, we have upstream versus downstream activities. In the case of the river basins we're dealing with, often upstream there are hydropower dams, and downstream there is food production taking place. You may also have regions which are concentrating more on urbanization and urban development versus those that want to protect and promote rural development. So those would be distinct priorities in the basin. In planning and implementing participatory processes that involve multiple sectors and disciplines, such as the Nexus does, we are trying to achieve a level of mutual trust to strengthen the relationships among the stakeholders so that learning becomes easier and more effective, and the perspectives of the participants can be broadened, and in some cases they are indeed changed. The goal of such a process is to achieve more effective communication across sectors and disciplines, and to try and achieve as an initial step a common understanding and hopefully reduce ambiguity and uncertainty. We're going to take a recent example, a project that's just approaching an end called Daphne, a decision analytic framework to explore the WEF nexus in complex and transboundary water resource systems of fast-growing developing countries. It's a Horizon 2020 project funded by the European Commission. And the overall goal is to establish a decision framework that can be used by stakeholders, by decision makers to support the management of these natural resources in a sustainable way. We have used an integrated water resources management approach as the basis for this, IWRM as it's known. And we use this to address the nexus in the Omo-Turkana basins and the Zambezi basins of Africa. The Omo River runs from northern Ethiopia to the south of the country and empties into Lake Turkana in Kenya. And the Zambezi in southern Africa runs through 7 countries. It's a very large basin, not the largest, but it runs from Namibia in the west to Mozambique in the east, where it empties into the Indian Ocean. The approach has involved the quantification and analysis of the WEF nexus, including quite a bit of modeling. And the other important element is working with stakeholders to identify the issues as well as the trade-offs between potentially conflicting objectives, such as hydropower versus irrigation, as I mentioned earlier, and land exploitation versus conservation. Just 2 examples. We have in the project, which started in 2016, 14 partners, 5 are in Africa and 9 are in Europe. And the project is coordinated by ETH is in Zurich, Switzerland. The modeling, much of the modeling and quantitative work is being carried out by Politecnico di Milano and several other partners who are there on the screen. And in leading the participatory process, we are working with the partners who are based in the case study area, and that would be the African Collaborative Resource Center for Earth System Science, ACCESS for short, in Nairobi, the Water and Land Resource Center, WLRC, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, the University of Zambia, and the University of the University of Mozambique. So in addition, we have partners who are also working with the participatory process and attend all the meetings that we go to with stakeholders. So in addition to the partners who are in the case study regions, the coordinator, ETH Zurich, is also there, Politecnico di Milano, the European Institute for Participatory Media, who also has been instrumental in developing some of the stakeholder tools that we use, visualization tools. They are based in Germany, and they are also at all of these meetings. So the project team leading the participatory process has to facilitate an understanding of the effects and trade-offs associated with managing the nexus. And therefore, we need to provide a means for making a comparative analysis of different decision pathways. Through a so-called negotiation simulation lab, we created an environment to support stakeholders in sharing their different perspectives and cooperating in order to develop potential or identify potential pathways to sustainable resource use. NSL means, first, negotiation. The stakeholders who are involved in the process, they meet in an open forum and discuss issues and potential solutions among themselves, to put it very simply. Simulation, and that means that stakeholders mimic a real-life deliberative process or a negotiation process. And they do so with people from very diverse interests and backgrounds. And the lab is the open environment created to facilitate a safe learning space. And that does not mean anything of a technical nature. Usually we aim for a neutral location that is in a hotel, for example, so that the partners and the stakeholders can meet together and discuss in in an open and fair way. So, reducing ambiguity in the process. Now, some of the activities I will mention here have other purposes, but they also served to reduce ambiguity, in our view. And we tried to achieve this in the following ways. First, by identifying and defining issues at different geographic scales. We started first with multi-sectoral groups at the sub-basin level and sometimes at the country level. And then they moved into groups, into a plenary where all the various geographic groups were represented, and they deliberated at the basin level. We promoted visualization of issues and a holistic understanding of basin priorities related to the WEF nexus through joint activities that included mapping exercises and computer-based visualization that were developed by the partners. And these tools facilitated a sense of collaboration for achieving this shared understanding and hopefully ultimately developing solutions, which they did. So keeping the same stakeholders involved in the meeting is another significant challenge, but it helps certainly when you have the same people involved to create a sense of familiarity, of trust and cooperation among stakeholders. And we also tried to encourage inclusivity. So everyone was encouraged to contribute, and this is more effective, quite often more effective in small groups, small group settings. A consistent challenge is that of ensuring that the stakeholders are speaking the same language. Both in terms of vocabulary and the phraseology they use. This is an important consideration, especially for cross-boundary interactions, of course, where different languages may be involved, but also within regional or national boundaries because of different professional backgrounds, disciplines, sectors, and of course, culture, which can also be very diverse in a country like Ethiopia. So involving project partners who can speak across sectors and disciplines is important, and they are the project partners located in the basin countries who are key to connecting the different groups. Oops, come back. So finally, ensuring that the same people are engaged throughout cannot be underestimated. When the project involves an incremental process, you go step by step, and this takes time and it takes several meetings. But keeping those same people involved is rather key. And it sometimes requires lobbying efforts by the partners who are based in the case study regions or ourselves to get those same people to attend or to speak with their organizations to ensure that they are represented by the same person. So after the project ends, maintaining clarity and a common understanding of the issues which are ever-changing and their solutions. We have recognized and tried several approaches to this, particularly in intersectoral and transboundary projects. A stakeholder network or a community of practice would ideally need to be developed and maintained, and this is more likely to evolve if there is an existing basin-wide platform or network that can take it on or lead it. We identified, for example, in the Zambezi Basin, the Zambezi Watercourse Commission, ZAMCOM for short, who would be interested in taking on this role. Visualization and information platforms and other such tools can be put into the hands of such a community of practice, but they need to be supported by training and resources. And that should be planned well in advance, preferably at the outset of the project. So here you see one of the training sessions going on in one of our meetings, where we're showing one of the visualization tools and exploring pathways. To assess the learning that took place and improve the participatory process, we undertook a pre and post meeting survey of participants who attended all the meetings. And here we have listed a few quotes from the post meeting survey. And these are fairly representative of the responses we had. In particular, interaction with stakeholders from other sectors was considered valuable, and learning about the interests and priorities of other stakeholders was also considered a benefit. So that's the end of my presentation, and I thank you all for attending. We are going to have one more presentation, and then we will go into a discussion group, which will allow us plenty of time to explore some of the approaches and concepts that have been discussed so far.